Good morning, everyone. My name is Armeline Ibiting. I am a BSc English second year student at JHCC main campus. What am I going to do right now is to have a demo lecture on a certain topic that we are going to discuss this morning. But before am I going to introduce to you or give you the topic and the content of our lecture, I will just going to give you some hint or some examples that best describes or define what will be going to be our topic for today's lecture. These are our examples. First example is a scenario. What you are going to do is to list down all the ideas you have in mind so that you have to analyze all the examples that I'm going to present to you. And after that, you have to list down all your ideas and you have to create your own conclusion, generalization, and hypothesis. These two scenarios have similarities. What's the structure and how the teacher act and how the students respond. How the teacher started the scenario and how the student respond to teacher's act on the scenario. So our second examples are images or pictures. These pictures describes or define what will going to be our topic and the content of our topic for today's lecture. I have here 9 images. So what you're going to do is the same as the rules of the scenarios. You have to list down all the ideas you have in mind, and then you have to create your own conclusion, generalization, and hypothesis. So, what have you listed on your notes? Well, let us find out whether your conclusion is related to the topic and the content of our lecture for this morning. What is our topic for today? Our topic is all about today's lecture is all about inductive teaching. Okay. So the process of inductive teaching is from samples to rules. Have you noticed on our scenarios that a teacher gave a story, which this story is the examples of the teacher given to the students with adjectives to the students. So if this is the example, well then adjective here is the topic, and the students will list down the adjectives on the whiteboard. So if the students will list down all the adjectives on the whiteboard, they will going to create their own conclusion, generalization, or hypothesis about the certain rules, which is the adjective. So the second one is teacher gives students a sample of a poem with shapes. So this is the example. Sample of a poem. This is the example that a teacher given before the teacher will going to present the rules or the content of the discussion, while their topic is all about shapes. And then have you noticed that then the teacher will focus on students' comment towards the shape. So the student required to create their own comment about the given sample of the teacher. So it is examples to rules. So the students will going to find out by themselves. So they must have self-discovery, or the rules must be discovered by the students themselves. Just like the first image that I've shown. This image talks about self-discovery. Yes, the man is walking on the road with so much directions that he may take. So, he must have self-discovery. And that's what inductive teaching is offering. The second one is a learner-centered notice that the students is raising their hands. So, the students is included on teacher's discussion. Not just lecturing, but the students will have interaction or actively participating on the teacher's discussion. So it is learner-centered. Well, the third image is students processing data. So in inductive teaching, the students requires to process data by themselves. So in inductive teaching, the students requires to have these three aspects. First is remembering. Just look at the image. The cartoon is somewhat like, yes. So, he or she remembered something. That is remembering. In inductive teaching, the students should have the ability to remember or to recall all the topic before, so that the examples given by the teacher, he or she can create conclusion or hypothesis. The second one is understanding. Why a student need to have understanding on for themselves? Because it is learner-centered and self-discovery. They must understand because the teacher will give examples and they must understand examples in order to get the rules of the topic. And the third one is applying. Students will need to have applying aspect. The fourth one is analyzing. So, the students need to analyze something. They must analyze the examples in order to get the rules of the discussion or the lecture. So, they require analyzation. The third one is evaluating. So, the students need to evaluate the examples that the teacher given so that they would come up to the rules, the exact rules of the content. And lastly is creating. After learning everything, they would create conclusion, generalization, or hypothesis. In short, inductive teaching is a learner-centered approach where the teacher will give examples to the students and the students need to find the rules or the content of the discussion or the lecture. So, it is a self-discovery where the students need to find out the rules by themselves. But inductive teaching has advantages, of course. Rules learners that discover themselves are more meaningful and memorable. So, as the students or the learner find the rules, it is more meaningful and memorable. Because for me, if the student will need to find out by themselves, the retention of the learnings in their mind will last longer. And the next is students are more actively involved in the learning process as it is learner-centered teaching. The third advantage is students will have greater self-reliance and autonomy. That means the students will be more confident because they're going to have conclusion, generalization, or hypothesis. So, autonomy, it means pagsasarili because it is a self-discovery process. So, if inductive teaching has advantages, well, it will always have disadvantages. So the first disadvantage is students may hypothesize the wrong rules. Well, as the students give examples, maybe if the students didn't understand correctly what is the essence or the message of the example, they may hypothesize wrong rules. The second disadvantage is it can place heavy demands on teachers in planning a lesson. Requires heavy demands of the teachers to think properly so that the examples will be given is appropriate to the content or to the rules of the topic. And the third one is time and energy spent working out rules may mislead students into believing that rules are the objective of language learning. Yes, it rules and objectives will be for students' mind interchange because maybe if the example given the students may think that the rules presented on the examples is the objectives of the discussion or the objective or the topic. So that's all for inductive teaching. I really hope that you learned a lot about my lecture for today.